The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Live from Boston, Massachusetts, this is Unscheduled with Les Skymo, and I'm Dave. Good to be with you, and if you'd like to call tonight, give us a call at 1-800-508-5431. That's 1-800-508-5431.
And thank our troops.
Oh, yeah, we like to thank the troops for serving and for all their service they've done for us, and right past Memorial Day. I know personally, I rode my motorcycle in the parade this year on Memorial Day, and me and my wife, and we had a good time doing that. So we appreciate all the soldiers out there who are far, far, far away from home. After all, it's being a veteran, I know what it's like to be away from home during a holiday, and it's not fun. It gets old after a while, and especially when you're young and you haven't been away from home for that long. It really makes it tough.
Yeah, it does, Dave. I remember when I left, it wasn't that big of a deal for me. I've always been somewhat of a loner. And my biggest problem was calling home. And after our 0 week, our drill sergeants marched us over to the telephones and to make our phone calls to family and things. And so I didn't call. And so about 10 o'clock it's probably about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, drill sergeant flipped the lights on, started hollering, screaming my name, and I hadn't called home in like 2 or 3 weeks. And so I hit the floor, and he chewed me out. He said, "You ain't called home, blah, blah, blah." Well, come make a long story short, my mother, somehow or another, got the post commander's phone number, Fort Knox, Kentucky. She called the post commander. They got a hold of my drill sergeant, and he wasn't too happy having to get up and get dressed to come and get me, march me to the telephone to call my mother. I'll never forget that. Did it work, Nance? Yeah, we're live on Facebook, folks. But I'll never forget that, Dave. And, that's a loving mother can find you. I don't care where you go. And,
that's true, yeah.
But, I want to thank all the military, Dave. Throughout the history of this country, there have been 1.3 million servicemen and women die for our freedom for this country. And, my heart goes out to all of them, especially those that's deployed. There's so many children that it affects, when they're deployed to the theaters of battle. And so, in Memorial Day, and I was going to mention the parade. I'd heard that you and Janet was in the parade, and
it was a good time. We had quite a few bikers were there. It wasn't no Rolling Thunder or anything, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, well, it don't take too many Harleys just to rattle the windows, but I'm sure
we had 50 bikes,
time.
I guess, at least.
Yeah. Folks, we'll welcome you to Unscheduled, and they're on Facebook. Hello, everybody. And like Dave says, you can call us at 1-800-508-5431. And if you go to Facebook, you can go to Armed Radio Group News for a complete lineup of Armed Radio Global's shows. And I'm sure that you'll find something there that you'll like. And so go on there and cruise around there and see what you can find. And something else I want to mention, Dave. I don't know how much I've told you about it, but you remember when Chris, my son, passed away back in 1982. He passed away up there at Children's Medical Center and from cancer. Well, all these years later, the family, we have started a Christopher Lee Foundation, and to take donations. We're on Facebook, but we don't have our donation button working yet, so we're bouncing back and forth with them at Facebook to get that thing approved and everything. But as far as all the federal stuff, we got it done. I finished all the state stuff up today. And we got our certificate from the state. So we're a legitimate 501c3. And so we've got our bank account open. And so all the donations is tax-deductible donation. And something I'm really proud of what we're doing here, Dave, is 100%. Yes, I said 100% of the money we receive in donations goes for the cause. Now, the cause is it's for children with terminally ill disease. One of the biggest things is medical bills. And sometimes it's just as simple as gas and something to eat. When you're running back and forth and you've got a child in the hospital for days and months, there's a lot of things piled up on you, Dave. I know this, my family knows this from personal experience with Chris. And from the time we found out he had cancer, it's called hepatoblastoma, a very rare type of cancer, 2 major surgeries. And but anyway, he never survived it. But anyway, our foundation is to help children and their parents. We was getting ready to leave out of that hospital. My insurance company, I had military insurance from being retired from the military. I'm a disabled veteran, but they retired me. The military did. So my insurance paid it 75 or 80%. But out of all that, I still owed $100,000 was my percentage, was what was left for me to pay. And so the hospital, Dayton Children's up there, they said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to get a hold of these charitable organizations to see if they can help you. Well, thank God, Dave, that there's people that they stepped up. Wasn't only for me. You know, that hospital's full of children with terminal ill disease. And it's such a sad, it's bad to lose your own child, but it compounds it when you're around it day after day and other children, you see parents going through the same thing you are, children through the same thing your children going through day after day. But anyway, these other charitable organizations, Dave, they paid $90,000. That left us only owing $10,000. And Children's Hospital was good enough. They worked out a payment plan with me, and I eventually paid that $10,000 off with monthly installments. And so after all these years, we're like, it's time for us to reach out and to help somebody. It's time for us to do something to help somebody else, Dave, because these people was there for us. And, so we want to do the same thing. And what we want to do is target local families that children's got terminal disease and maybe they need help. And also, we want to target some of our funds to St. Jude's Hospital, no bill. Families, children, nobody gets a bill. They house you, they feed you. Shriners, We got a Shriners burn unit here in Cincinnati, and also they do orthopedic work there. A friend of mine had 2 children that was patients at Shriners, and they had hip replacements, and they still have surgery to go. But the parents was fed and taken care of. They was housed. Children was taken care of. No bill. They had to pay nothing, and that's amazing. After going through what I went through, and the pressure that was on us, not only losing our child, but we was saddled with this big debt, And but the Lord worked it out, Dave, And I had other children. We all went through our grieving process, and it's still tough today. 41 years later, 1982 to now, 40 years, something like that. But it's time for us to start giving back. So we're trying to get our Facebook donation button up. But now our bank account's at the Huntington Bank, and they're in, I think, northwestern United States. I don't know how many states that encompasses, but the Huntington Bank. So for now, folks, if you want to make a donation to the Christopher Lee Foundation, and we will pass that money on in my son's name to a worthy cause. Like I said, 100% of the proceeds goes to the cause. We have no employees. We're a family-run charity. We take no money for anything that we do. And we're going to hold fundraisers, some kind of fundraisers and stuff through the summer, Dave. And I don't know what we'll get into during the winter. Our bottom line goal is $5,000. And but I want to double or triple that, Dave. But anybody out there listening, I tell you, you can send a check to 460 Central Avenue, Carlisle, Ohio, Carlisle, Ohio, 45005. Make a check payable to Christopher Lee Foundation. Christopher is spelled Christifer, not your traditional spelling. And make that out to Christopher Lee Foundation, 460 Central Avenue, Carlisle, Ohio, 45005. And I will promise you that 100% of that, whether it's $5, $5,000, or $1 or $100,000, all of it will go, Dave, to the cause. There's not too many charities that will do that or can do that. And so that's what we're into now, and we're going to see where this goes, Dave. And win, lose, or draw, we can be proud that we took a stab at it, brother, took a shot at it. And, I've said this a million times. I've got 2 other sons. I hunt with one in the winter. I fish with the other one all summer. Never had a chance to do much with Chris. He passed away when he was 4. So in my later years, this gives me an opportunity to do something with Chris, and it feels good to be doing this, Dave. And so pray for us, y'all, that we'll get this off the ground. And because we can't do it without the public, Dave,
That's right.
And you can't go wrong by giving, and I want to thank the Lord for my family. I tell you, my family, we grew up with very little. We grew up with very little. My dad worked like a dog, and but in the hospital, in and out a lot. And but we've always been a giving family, Dave, and we've always reached out and give. And the family, we run that street ministry, the Full Gospel Street Ministry. You and Janet probably remember that. We run that for, 10 years plus, I guess, Nance. Went into soup kitchens, went to the ghettos. Man, we preached on the streets. I mean, it was an amazing time. We've seen some amazing things. We've seen God do some amazing things, Dave, and we'd have benefit singings, and we'd have these big name groups that would volunteer. And, our first singing was at Carlisle High School there, and they packed that place out. And, I mean, it took off like a wildfire, but it run its course, but you can't go wrong by giving. And, even if you get took advantage of from time to time, hey, don't shut up your bowels of compassion because somebody hurt your feelings,
Mm-hmm.
And because you can't outgive God, and being good is the right thing to do. So that's what we're going to do, and you can go on Facebook, you can type in Christopher Lee Foundation and bring up our page, and we got a write up on there. Just hit the about button and it'll give you the story and what we're about and everything. So I want to give that a plug. I want to thank Donald. Donald mentioned us on his show, All Aboard with Donald Whistling, yesterday and last night. I want to thank Donald for putting that plug in for me.
And some news that I heard the last couple of days was Israelis. They're blessed by God, and if you're Jewish, God blesses you. It says in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, it says, "I will bless them that bless you, and I'll curse them that curse you." And I heard on the news that the Israelis researchers have found a way to restrict a protein that forms in cancer. It's a way. It's going to be a cure eventually for cancer, because if they can restrict this protein, then the cells can't multiply.
Right.
So this protein that they found, which is common in all cancers,
mm-hmm.
if they can restrict its formation with this drug, it would virtually cure cancer and would have very little side effects. I mean, you wouldn't get sick, you wouldn't be weak, or you wouldn't lose your hair like traditional
That's the first I've heard
traditional chemotherapy, where this drug will. I mean, it's in the early stages of trial,
right?
And it restricts this protein, which all cancers have in common. And if the protein can't form, then the cell can't form, so it can't reproduce.
Right.
So if this works out right, then there may be on the horizon a cure for cancer, and I'd like to see that.
Amen, brother.
For all cancers. And also, President Trump just signed a bill. I think it was either today or yesterday, that says that if you're tried every means possible to, you're terminal,
right?
That you can take experimental drugs, which you used to not be able to do.
Right. You
had to go to Europe or Mexico or South America or someplace where it was legal. The FDA wouldn't approve it, so therefore you couldn't take the drug. But if you're dying anyway and you want to try something last resort, you can do this in the United States without traveling overseas.
Yeah, that should be your call anyway, Dave. And I never could understand that. But see, that there you go with big government.
Right.
This is a case where it is absolutely your life, your health, unlike abortion.
Why not try it? Go for it.
Right.
I mean, if you're terminal anyway, you only got 3, 4, 5, 6 months to live. Whatever. I mean, if it kills you a little early, what have you lost?
Yeah,
it might work.
Right.
Might give you maybe a year more.
This should have been allowed right on. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the first I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, does it? You may not know this, or you might. But now, if you've already got cancer, does this kill the cancer that you already have, or just keep it from spreading to other organs, or do you even know?
There's researchers, what they do, there are labs all over the country, they're doing research programs where a lot of times they have a new drug and it hasn't gone through trials,
right?
FDA trials, because it hasn't been proven to be effective only in animals, say, and they've never tried it on humans. So in effect, what they're doing is using you as an animal experiment.
Right.
So when you take the drug, if it works, I mean, you might live longer, but it may not cure the disease, but it may, give you more time.
Right.
Whereas before it was illegal because the FDA would not allow unless it went through. It's really difficult to get a drug approved. That's why
Oh,
drugs
yeah.
cost so much, because
Oh, yeah.
it takes so long to get a drug approved.
Yeah.
But you have to jump through hoops, and that's why when you see these TV commercials where drugs are advertised, they have to go through the list of every
Side
possibility.
effect.
Like, say the person had a cold when they were in the trial, and they were coughing. Say may cause coughing, may cause congestion in your lungs. It may cause a urinary tract infection. It may cause diarrhea. It may cause constipation. It may cause sweating. It may cause all these different
Yeah.
possible things.
Yeah. Right.
And they're not pleasant, but they have
Right.
to list that, even though you probably won't get these symptoms.
Yeah.
They have to, but according to the Food and Drug Administration, list every possibility that they've encountered during the trial run of this drug, where they
Right.
take like maybe 500 people, maybe 1,000 people, and it's a blind study,
Yeah.
meaning that there's maybe 500 people that are not given the drug or given a placebo. The other 500 are given the actual drug. They all have the same condition, but they want to see the efficacy of the drug, so they compare it, and if the placebo has no effect, and the people taking the actual drug have a good effect from it, and it helps their symptoms, then the FDA approves it over a period of time.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Well, and not only that. Now, I know there's some price gouging going on out there. I don't know how much. I know now, I heard that the pharmaceutical companies is going to announce a big price reduction in a lot of their pharmaceuticals. Now, I would say that that's going to be with the drugs that's been on the market for a long time, because now when drugs are in their infancy and they're still working on a particular drug, a lot of the college, university laboratories do this work. It's not only government labs, but they contract these. They make donations and things to the colleges, and they get them involved in the research and development, and they get other professional laboratories on it. They get everybody they can. So there's millions and billions even of dollars going to development and research to one particular drug. These people can't do that for free.
Right.
They have to be paid.
What President Trump is going to do, and this makes a lot of sense, is that, see, the people in the United States, most of the drug companies are U.S. drug companies. Not all. Some are affiliated with Europe. But what happens is the U.S. citizens pay the R&D for the drugs.
Yes.
And that's why they're sold overseas cheaper, is because they're not paying the R&D prices.
Right.
Because we pay the R&D prices. That's why drugs in Canada aren't as expensive. And in Europe, the same drug isn't as expensive as it is in the U.S. Now, typically a drug has a patent at the formula. And it's good for, I think, 18 years. And it can be extended if some change is made in the formula.
Right.
You can extend the patent. And that's what happens is a lot of times you buy a generic, it doesn't have to be 100% effective as the original drug.
Right.
According to the FDA's own rules, that if you buy a drug, if it's a generic, it doesn't have to be 100% effective like the original drug. That it's a clone of, a copy of.
Right.
So, therefore, the original drug may be more efficient in taking care of the problem than the generic, according to their FDA's own rules.
Now, see, that's something. Now, that right there, Dave, is something I didn't know.
I learned that in pharmacology.
In
school.
Is that right?
Yeah, I learned a lot of this stuff in pharmacology.
See, that's why I took him aboard. But see, people need to consider that, because everybody and their brother, unless their insurance company's paying 100% of it or close to it, everybody and their brother, even I do. And I hate to give me the generic of it.
Right.
Usually
now, generic's good enough.
Yeah, well, now I know at Wright-Patterson, where I go, me and my wife goes for a medical, when we get a prescription, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, even with them, we'll get the generic. They'll give us, we got to get whatever they take. I mean, we got to take whatever they give us up there. But a lot of times it's the generic. We have no choice, and it's good. They have these government contracts for the pharmaceuticals, and, the government gets everything that they can, the cheapest they can find it, unless it's a $400 hammer or a $400 toilet seat. And, which that come out on them several years ago, that the hammers and toilet seats was costing about $400.
You take any drug, any drug at all, the production cost is relatively cheap.
Yeah.
What takes so much money is the R&D,
research and development,
because they have to do these studies, and they have to go through years and years of studies to find out how effective the drug is compared to a placebo.
Well, that's to get it through the
right.
FDA.
And then when it's even sometimes it's after it's gone through its testing and it's approved by the FDA, somebody encounters problems years later, like it may cause a birth defect.
Yeah, right.
So they have to pull it off the market. But the FDA has rules that say that a generic drug does not have to be as effective as the original.
Right.
So you can buy a clone or a copy of the drug, which is, it may even look like it. It may be chemically identical, but it may not work quite as well. There may be some little ingredient that's different or a different level.
Something tweaked.
Yeah, something a little bit different in it, so it may not work quite as well. But that's okay with the FDA. They don't care.
Well, see, that's the thing about pharmaceuticals. You don't just get one ingredient in a drug. Right. It's a combination. It's a concoction. Mm-hmm. And these things work together for whatever it is, runny nose or blood clots or whatever. And, I say the research and development, it costs billions to do all that, Dave, and all these years to do that. Now, what President Trump has signed, that could cut years off of that research and development,
Well, even if it doesn't, it'll cheapen the prices here in the U.S. If they spread the price for R&D out over Europe and Canada, South America, Australia, all over the world, and Asia. If they spread that cost amongst all the users of that drug, it'll make our drug costs go down.
That's what they ought to do.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But you know what, Les? This is something amazing to me, that the world today depends so much on drugs.
Oh yeah.
Think about this. The young people, they take drugs because they want to feel no pain, and they want to get high. They want to escape from the world.
Yeah.
But the Bible predicted this would happen in these days, because it says clearly in the book of Revelation, it says they repented not of their sorceries. That word sorceries is an old English term, meaning, if you look it up in the Greek, it means pharmakeia.
Yeah, pharmakeia.
Pharmakeia, which is where we get the word pharmacy, or pharmakos is the Greek, I think. And then we get that word pharmacy.
Right.
That word sorcery is an old English translation of that word, of the Greek word, pharmacy. So we're seeing kids today, they don't want to stop using their drugs.
Right.
It means the Bible says they repented not of their sorceries.
Right.
So they enjoy taking drugs. They're going to continue taking drugs. And this is going to be and you're seeing a trend right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're legalized marijuana in Colorado, Washington State, California. All these different states are starting to legalize marijuana. And you know what's happening? I saw on the news the other day.
It's a way big time abuse.
All these illegal people from Mexico and China, all these different places,
immigrants
are taking and growing their drugs in Colorado and selling them all over the world, all over the United States.
Oh yeah.
But that way they don't have to ship them in from overseas.
Right. Well, and you go back in 1700s, 16, 14, 1500s. That was, there wasn't nothing outlawed back then. And this,
Right.
and
Well, there was cocaine in Coca-Cola back in the turn of the century, between the 19th and 20th century in the 1880s.
Yeah,
there was cocaine in Coke.
right. And they say that George Washington used some kind of drug on his gums.
Probably morphine.
Because that the spring in his teeth, it would chew up the back of his jaw, and he would put that on there to soothe that.
But the interesting thing about getting back to Coca-Cola, what's interesting about that, the reason they use cocaine is because it's bitter.
Yeah.
So when they took cocaine out of Coke, they replaced it with caffeine, which is also bitter, and they use that to balance the sugar. The sugar that's in the in the Coca-Cola is sweet. So that to balance the formula, they use something bitter, and instead of using cocaine, they switched over to caffeine, and that's why they initially put caffeine in, because cocaine was illegal.
Did the price of Coke go down?
Well, I just can't imagine what it'd be like to. It'd probably numb your throat back then.
Well, you know, and these things, and you had the prohibition and all that. These things didn't become illegal until the government
FDA came along.
started
regulating.
Well, and they seen the effects of it on society. You know, you got a society that's always on drugs. First thing, they're unproductive. You take an alcoholic, now he'll work. You know, he works to drink. But a drug, and he will regulate his drinking around his job normally. And I know that because I've had a couple of alcoholic uncles, and they held their jobs, and they was alcoholics, but I know a lot of other people that done it. But now with drug addicts, Dave, a drug addict can't work and function and be a drug addict. They just can't do it. But your adverse effect on society is it's negative all the way around. Crime goes up, production goes down.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
well, that's why the Bible warns us against that. You know, people in the Bible, they drink wine, and it said don't be a drunkard. You know, you don't be a drunkard. Or I think in the wine bibber, for what they call Jesus, because he came eating and drinking. They call him a glutton and a wine bibber because he was eating and drinking.
Right.
Whereas John the Baptist never drank.
Right.
But a lot of people say, well, it wasn't alcohol, but it had to be. How could you get drunk on non-alcoholic wine?
Right.
So how could you be a wine bibber if you drunk on an alcoholic wine? Yeah. But anyway, getting back to that point, it warns us not to be a glutton, not to overeat, and not to be over drinking.
Right.
Because you can't function either way.
Right. Well,
if your heart's in eating all the time, you're going to get big as a house, and you're going to stay drunk, and you're not going to want to work.
Well, and you're going to have all these medical problems, and then there you are going back to the doctor getting you some more drugs. So I mean, you know, it's in moderation. You know, the Bible does teach moderation, and but I mean, it's not only drugs. The abuse of drugs or alcohol that kills us. It can be a lot of our lifestyles, Dave.
Sure.
The things that we there's a lot of harmless things that we make habits out of that they are our demise.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we're warned of those things, but human nature's never changed. Since the fall of man, he is his own worst enemy. And we put things in our body. You know, just say smoking. Why do you cough and hack and you get sick and turn green? It's because that smoke is not natural to your body.
Right.
Your body's trying to tell you, don't do this to me. Mm-hmm. You know, don't abuse me like this. But we force our bodies to accept this. And then before you know it, we're hooked on cigarettes. Now, I know that as well as anybody. I smoked up until 12 years ago, and I had throat cancer. And as you know, I was cut from ear to ear, and they took my epiglottis out. They took muscle out of my neck, shoved up under the edge of my tongue so I could swallow without strangling. And, I mean, now I don't notice it. As far as eating and drinking, I can't gargle anymore, you know. And, but I strangle real easy. But I'm telling you, it has, when your body is rejecting it, it's for a reason, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
It's because down the road somewhere, it's going to cause you harm.
Exactly. Jesus said this. He said, "Isn't life more than just eating, drinking, and your clothes and
Right.
things you wear?" He said, "Look at the birds in the air. They don't toil or reap. They don't store up in warehouses, but yet your heavenly Father takes care of them." So it's when we concern ourselves with the things of the world, it's where we get in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
We put that before God. We don't put that. We don't put it in the right order.
Right.
We get things out of sequence of how they should be, or how we don't worship God and put God first.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do end up doing is we try to appease our flesh,
Right.
and make it feel good instead of making the spiritual man feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
it's the spiritual things that matter. He said that Jesus said the flesh doesn't profit you anything.
Right.
What if a man gained the whole world and lost his soul? What would he?
Oh, yeah.
What would profiting?
Nothing.
Nothing. Because you never see a U-Haul behind a hearse.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just don't see it.
Yeah.
It just never happens.
You ain't taking it with you.
No, you came naked into the world. Naked you'll go.
Naked, you'll go
And
out.
then you'll leave this better like this meat. Carnal means meat, basically.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
yeah.
where we get the word chili con carne and carnal, and it all means the flesh.
Yeah.
So the things of the flesh you will not take with you, and the things you
Right.
do in the flesh you won't be rewarded for in heaven.
Right.
It's the things you do by the Spirit, which God gives you. The neat thing about it,
Right.
He gives you the ability to do good because there's no good thing in the flesh.
Oh, it's not human nature to do good.
Exactly. So He rewards you for just obeying Him.
Right. Right. Now you go back and as far as you want, Dave. Back when we were all savages at one time, and it was kill or be killed, and it was conquer, and it was it was just all about self-preservation. And the thing about the Lord, Dave, is He will give you compassion for other people. Now, in our immediate families, if you haven't destroyed that affectionate part of you that love your family and to care for your children. I mean, we do that, okay, but how many times do we go outside of our family to reach out to people we don't know, or
Right.
I mean, that's not normally in our nature to do.
Right. Our nature is
know.
to do bad.
And to do what feels good to the flesh.
It comes naturally to do bad. You don't have to never teach a kid to lie.
Oh,
You don't-
it's automatic.
You don't have to teach him
Yeah.
to steal. You don't have to teach him to do any of these
Right.
things. And look what happened with Roseanne.
Yeah,
I didn't want to bring this up, but with Roseanne, it felt good for her to say that.
at the time she said
At
it.
the time she
Yeah.
said that, it pleased her flesh to
Yeah.
say that
Oh, yeah,
because she didn't like this woman,
right,
because she never cared for this woman. But
right,
the things we say and we can't take back, once when the words leave our mouth, they're there.
they're out there forever.
And you'll never get them back.
Never get 'em back.
And no matter how you apologize, you never get to retreat.
Right,
You never
right,
get to retrieve
right.
those words.
Yeah,
And once it's a sad thing that she lost a hit show because of
good show.
her words.
yeah. I never cared much for her, but I watched that show. I kind of liked it, and I thought, I mean, it kind of, at least for an hour of that show, it brought people together, at least for that time. Even some Trump haters, I'm sure,
Well,
watched that show.
Thinking back to the Bible, relating this back to the Bible, it was James and John who said to the Lord, "Let us pray fire down on Samaria." To them, it felt good to do
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And Jesus looked at him and said, "You don't know what spirit you're of.
Right,
You don't know you don't know what you're saying.
yeah.
You don't know the right spirit. You're speaking
Revenge.
the devilish
Yeah,
spirit."
right. Yeah.
That's the spirit of the devil that's coming
Right.
through you.
Yeah.
And that's what man is. Man is basically born to do evil.
Well,
Until
sure.
you are
Yeah.
born again
Yeah.
of the Spirit, that's what Nicodemus sought. He sought Jesus by night to learn. He couldn't see Jesus
Right.
for what he really was.
Yeah.
He knew his miracles. He knew he was sent by God, but he didn't know him to be God because he wasn't born again.
Right.
He couldn't see the kingdom because it was hid from him because he wasn't born again. And that's the same as it is today with the world. The world, it's hid from them.
Right.
They can't see God. They don't know God because it's hid from them, because you have to be born again. And that people say, well, what is that being born again?
Right.
It's being born of the Spirit. So you
Right.
know God. You
Right.
know God. You have a relationship with God. God no longer is in a temple, but he dwells inside you.
Right.
And that's what it's all about, is
Yeah.
receiving God.
Well, and Dave, here's the thing about it. And I've been a Christian for a little over 30 years, and you've been saved for a long time. A lot of people say, well, saved from what? Hellfire and myself.
You're on
But,
your way naturally
you
there.
know,
You don't have to do anything to get to hell. To
and
go to hell, you don't have to do anything.
I was my own worst enemy, Dave. And, the human being left alone was self-destruct. And he or she is their worst enemy because they do what comes natural.
It's what feels
you
good
know.
in the flesh.
And, say smoking, for example, it's just like that. Once you force your body to accept it and you begin to enjoy it, later on down the road, you got lung cancer or throat cancer. Well, very few are lucky to live as old as my mother, that smokes like a freight train, 82 years old, wrestles alligators. Thanks for asking. Her shoulders coming along fine. And
How does
So-
that? She only wrestles them 12-foot alligators. She don't wrestle them
nothing,
big
no
ones.
smaller.
She
No.
don't wrestle with
Don't
little big
see her
ones.
come off the ropes on one. Bionic elbow, son.
You give her a roll of
Yeah.
duct tape to wrap its mouth up
Well,
with?
Emily does that.
Oh.
Her sister. They take their tag team. Yeah, and they take breaks. They take smoke breaks. And but boy, they're good at it. I tell you what, they talk about retiring, but I don't
They
believe
can
they
sure
will.
wrap that duct tape around their nose really
I
fast.
tell you what, boy.
And they-
Yeah, it's like a hog tying a steer.
Amazing.
All right, a little humor there. Never hurt nobody, did it? But
But the flesh is weak,
the
Les.
flesh is weak and the spirit is strong, Dave. And, he'll change the way you live if you give him an opportunity. And I tell you what, I don't miss anything that I used to do. I thank the Lord I'm out of that, Dave. But now, to turn this all toward our government, we see our government, the shape it's in now. People say what they want to about Donald J. Trump. But, all through history, God has chosen people out of a period of time to do certain things. And maybe unbeknownst to them, that they've even been used by God. But they're fulfilling Bible prophecy and don't even know it sometimes. And that's just like Joseph. Now, Joseph was a young man. Well, he was a kid. And his brothers was jealous of him. And he had these dreams. And he went and told his brothers and told his dad. And they laughed at him and made fun of him. His dad laughed at him and said, what are you talking about? He said, your brother's serving you? So his brothers got jealous and they took him out there and they threw him in that pit, which was probably a dry well. And so they wanted to kill him, and one of the brothers said, no, we don't want to kill him. So here come some travelers on their way to Egypt. So they get him out of the hole. Now, this is his own brother. Can you imagine what's going through his mind? And so they sell him into slavery to these merchants that's headed to Egypt. And it's a fabulous story. It's an amazing story. And there again, archaeologists is finding things You know, they dig up stuff all the time that proves the Bible is the greatest history book that ever was.
If you look at Joseph, he's a type of Jesus Christ. Think about it, because no time do you ever read about Joseph ever sinning.
Never.
But he wasn't perfect. But yet he is if you read the story, the similarities between him and Jesus Christ are just uncanny. I mean, just especially at the end of the story when he reveals himself
to his family. Yeah.
And they see him, and it's like what the Bible describes in Zacharias, that they shall look upon the one whom they've pierced and mourn as one mourns for their only son.
Right.
This is exactly the way they looked upon Joseph when they discovered that he was as long lost. They were his brothers.
Yeah. Well, and he spent 13 years in prison, was lied on, trying to rape, what was his name?
Potiphar.
Yeah.
Potiphar's wife.
She lied on him. And so the Lord got him out of that. And but then famine struck, and once again Pharaoh put him ahead of everything. He was the second in command. And him, a Hebrew, was the second in command.
But because of that dream that Pharaoh had about the lean years and the fat years, through Joseph, all the world was saved.
Exactly.
Because they all came down through there to get. They were the only ones, the Egyptians, that had wheat.
He was the only one that could interpret that dream.
I mean, they came from all over the place buying grain because it was a vast famine throughout all the Middle East.
Oh, yeah.
So it was through Joseph that the world was saved.
Right, exactly.
As it was through Jesus Christ. The world was saved because they were starved to death without Egypt storing up grain in the fat years.
Kind of like the United States.
The 7 fat years.
World. Well, yeah, and that's what brought Joseph's family down into Egypt to buy grain. And so to make a long story short, he revealed himself. His dad, he was the favorite kid. His mother made him that coat of 7 colors. Well, is that what it was? Coat of many colors. And and he was his dad's favorite. His brothers were afraid of him. And they thought, we're dead. And but they all reconciled, and it all worked out, just fine. And then the next king, after that king died, the next king, he forgot all, he didn't know Joseph or know any of the, so, he went right back to hating the Jews and all that. And
so they spent 400 years in bondage.
So they spent 400 years in bondage.
Until Moses came along and let them out.
But that was because of their own rebellion against God caused that, David, And but boy, look at here, it's 7:49 on my time stick, and we got anything over there on Facebook going on, Nate? But what do you think about this? Secretary Pompeo is about to meet with the North Korean diplomat. Dave, what do you think about that?
I'll tell you what,
Now, I prophesied on our last show that it was going to happen.
I'll tell you what, if it happens, if it happens on the 12th of June, that's fine. But just in my own way of thinking about it, I can't see how they spent so much time and effort developing nuclear weapons for them to give them away. I just don't see it happening.
Well, I understand. You know what it is?
I think they're going to cheat somehow and want to get the best of both worlds.
Well, and and it's only natural to think that way because look at who we're dealing with. But I think, on the other hand, now here's a little humor for you. But now, I've always said this, though, to be on the serious side. I really think that his sister has something to do with this. Because when she come back from the Olympics, I think that done something to her. And like I said, he's the only family member that he ain't killed. So, and they're real close. I think that she's influenced him into this and maybe brought him some chicken McNuggets from the McDonald's And so he's craving them chicken
See,
McNuggets.
that's why I came up with this theory a long time ago. It's kind of funny. I said, here's how you get peace with Kim Jong-un. You get him hooked on McDonald's and Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken and all these fast food.
Yeah.
He gets a little bit fatter and a little bit fatter and a little bit fatter, and then you take it away from him.
There
You say
you
you
go.
either sign a peace treaty,
Yeah.
give up your nukes,
Yeah.
or you get no more fast food.
Oh, yeah.
And he's signing in a heartbeat.
I mean, look what it does for
once
our
we start getting
kids.
skinnier,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, he's hooked.
I mean, how many moms pass the McDonald's when their kid's crying for chicken nuggets? They pull right in there,
Have
boy.
you ever noticed something? He's the only fat man in North Korea.
Yeah. Everybody else is eating up with parasites.
What does that tell you?
He's eating all the
everybody
McNuggets.
everybody else is this big around, and he's the only fat man in North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
He's eating good.
Yeah, he's eating all the food up. That's the food truck stops at his house first.
Something wrong with that picture, I'll tell you.
But I'm kind of excited about that though, Dave, because North Korea and South Korea, same people, same genetically, it's the same people. They got families across the DMZ there, and the people. I feel so sorry for those people.
It's sad.
And they try to escape into China. When they get caught, they're thrown in prison. And life's even more, just as hard on them, or worse, when the Chinese catch them. And, but them people, man, and it's just like with the Palestinians. I should say Arabs. There's no such thing really as a Palestinian. The average, and I know this, I don't know this from personal experience, okay, but I know, I just believe in my heart, you go into any third world country, Dave, any communist country, I don't care where you go, the average person, all they want to do is have a good job, raise their family, and the way they see fit, provide for their family and be left alone, with the exception of the radicals. Now you see they're still fighting and they're over there with the Arabs / Palestinians. They're still mad about the embassy. They're shooting. They've shot rockets over there. But see, them people's worked up to a frenzy. They've been lied to by Hamas. They're radicals. They're putting their children out front, and Israel gets all the blame.
Exactly. And, I heard today, and I never knew this, but it says the United Nations has never declared Hamas as a terrorist organization, whereas they're clearly terrorists.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they take the money that the United States gives them, Europe, and everybody else, and they don't use it on the people in the Gaza. What they do is they build terror tunnels, and they tunnel out underneath the fence, and they go and try to take Israelis hostage and get their buddies that's been in jail for years for terrorism out. And that's what they do, is they kidnap Israeli soldiers or civilians or kill them. And they do this for one reason, because they hate the Jews.
It's not about land.
No, they just hate them. They wouldn't, if the Jews existed on 1 square mile of Tel Aviv and the Palestinian Arabs had all the rest of the land, it still wouldn't be good enough. They'd want that little square mile. They'd say, get rid of them.
Well, see,
send them to Greenland or someplace, is what they'd say.
I forget exactly when it was. They wanted the Golan Heights. Now, the Golan Heights, that's the high country. That's a mountain that's very militarily strategic. And they wanted that. And they give them Gaza, which they have no deed to, no title to, no right to have it. They need to go back. They've been there. The Arabs has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay, but the thing about it is, Dave, is they don't have the deed to that property. They don't have that land is
God gave it to Abraham.
And seeing that's why, I don't care what anybody says, that's why that not the League of Nations, but that's where it started. United Nations, that's where the United Nations recognized that Israel owns that property. Owns that land is from the Old Testament. They didn't just pull that out of the sky.
King David purchased that land 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And to be the capital of Israel.
Well, and that's why they declared Israel a nation on May 14th, 1948.
The heartland of Israel is Judea and Samaria.
Right.
That is the heartland. That's where Abraham first walked into, and the land was given to him as far as he could see and as far as he could walk. Matter of fact, the Bible gives an illustration of the dimensions of Israel. It would be from the Nile River all the way north to Lebanon and Syria, all the way over to the Tigris-Euphrates River in Iraq, and down south to Dedan, which is Saudi Arabia. That is a huge amount of land.
Oh, yeah.
All the Sinai Peninsula, most of northern part of Saudi Arabia, all of Jordan, half of Iraq.
1 minute, Dave.
So that land was given to the Jews by God, and it's never going to be taken away. It's forever.
But there's going to be fighting, and this is going to go on. And I was wanted to get into some discussion about the Dome of the Rock and that, but we don't have time for it. Maybe we'll do that next week. And but thank the people on Facebook for spending the time with us. Thank you out there, Radio Land around the world. I want to thank you for listening and tuning in. And Dave, you want to?
I hope we didn't offend anyone, but we were kind of cutting up and having a little bit of fun. But if you're overweight, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
try to cut back. Hey, I'm right with you. I'm about 20 pounds overweight myself.
10 seconds.
So we gotta cut back.
All right. Hey, God bless y'all. We're signing out till next weekend. Next week is Dave and that's Skymo.